was interesting because I would sometimes I'd pull out 3, 4 in the morning. I'd go home, try to get an hour of sleep, lay down on, before I go. And, if it was getting close to work time, like David Brown would tell me, once you're late, it doesn't matter how late you are. You're late, man, because I'd go, I got to go, man. I'm late. You go, if you're late, you don't need to go. You're late. Doesn't matter if you get there 5 minutes after the work day starts, or if you get there 4 hours after the work day starts. He goes, late is late. There was no distinction. Of course, he was embellishing because he didn't want me to leave. He wanted to party. But I would go to work and I would hold my own up. And I just recently wrote a story about me going to San Cruz Island. I had to go for some work to do some work at the submarine surveillance system on Santa Cruz Island. And then from Santa Cruz Island, they took me to San Nicolas Island. And I was wanting to get back I had to get the job done on San Nicolas Island, catch a plane. There was only one plane out of there in late afternoon on Friday. And if you didn't catch that plane, you were stuck there unless a boat came in, or whatever, helicopter came in, emergency. So there's Satan slaves are having a party, and they're going to say goodbye to their clubhouse. And I can't remember. It's in the west end of the valley, near Topanga Canyon. There's no way I'm going to miss this party. And, it might have been right before I became a Hells Angel. I was getting close. And, yeah, I was independent. So was Bandit. Bandit was, and I had got the plane, bribed the pilot. At low tide on San Nicolas Island, we used to walk out and pick abalone up off the rocks. I mean, that's how much abalone was out there. We'd pick abalone up off the rocks, and I got word. I told the pilot, I go, hold that plane for me. I said, I got about 40 pounds of abalone I'll give you if you hold the plane. And so they held the plane for me. I made it, got home, and I'm going to go to this party the Satan slaves are having, moving away party from the clubhouse. And now mind you, I've been out working all week for the government, and back now, I go out in the garage, I get my riding gear on, and now, I'm looking like an outlaw. Before I'm looking like a Department of Defense worker with kind of longer hair and a beard and stuff. So I had my foot in both worlds, but I came back. I went to that party, and that party, I knew it was going to be epic. But when I got there, it was just incredible. And uh, recently, I wrote about it, and I didn't know in my own mind if I was embellishing the circumstances. So I called Keith Ball, and I got a hold of Keith, and I said, Keith, did these things actually happen at that party? Or I said, or am I missing something? Am I adding stuff that really didn't happen? And I'll tell you, one of the things that happened was the party just kept getting more, and more people. And I think the cops were there when we arrived. They had the streets blocked off already because there were so many people coming. The Satan slaves were like the sultans of San Fernando Valley. I mean, everybody wanted to go to this party that they were having. Word was all over the valley, the Satan slaves going away party to their clubhouse. Keith said they didn't come till later, and that was after we were firing the bottle rockets at the helicopters that were circling overhead. But the cops start circling the party. I mean, it's just complete hell going on. The cops start circling. The whole place is lit up with those, I don't know what they call them, daylights, or it's like dark to daylight with these searchlights on us. And the Satan slaves start passing out bottle rockets to the people that are there, like the people that are in the groove. and we're using Coke bottles and beer bottles to launch the bottle rockets at the helicopters. And this helicopter is circling. We start shooting the bottle rockets, and it banks out. It looks like a scene out of Vietnam. We're taking fire. Let's get out of here. And I don't remember how it started, and I think this was the ultimate plan all along, unbeknownst to me or Keith. But Keith was a really big guy, and most of the Satan slaves are really big guys. And uh, so you get Keith Ball and 4 or 5 slaves, and they literally demolished the house. I mean, we left that where the bikes were parked. The house was gone. It was all caved in. It was completely gone. We jumped on our bikes. The cops were everywhere now. The riot buses were coming because we had shot the bottle rockets at the helicopters. And so we jumped on our bikes, and there was a little diner. And I took off first. I made it to the diner, and then slowly the Satan slaves started coming. Keith never made it to the diner because everybody got separated because there were so many cops there. So we're sitting in the diner, and then cop arrives and just sits there and stares at us. He knows all of our bikes are out there. There's about 10, 15 bikes, so I'm with the slaves. I'm the only guy from the Ventura area there. I'm not an official question marks, but that's how they identified me. And so they draw straws, and I'm thinking, what's this going to be? Someone is going to get the short straw or the long straw, and they're going to jump on their bike, and then do the sacrifice to the cop that's waiting out there. And the straw was to go over to the payphone and call in a shots fired in the vicinity of near us, and the cop knew what they were doing because this was something that went on all the time, and the cop gave us the finger. The call came in. The cop gave us the finger and left because he had to go to the shots fired call. And then everybody jumped on their bikes, and I went home the back way that night. We were way up the end of the valley, and I went to the 118 and jumped on it, and came home through Moore Park and all the back roads, and was home for the weekend. But this is the shit I was doing. I had been out at Santa Cruz Island, San Nicolas Island, and made it back in time. And I was living in 2 worlds. I had a foot in the outlaw world. I had 1 foot in the real world. Well, a run is a party. It's not a party because it's not at a locale like a Oakland clubhouse or Ventura Hells Angel clubhouse or Satan Slave clubhouse. It's up in the mountains. I get word there's going to be a run at Kern River, and Kern River is a pretty popular place. Going to be a lot of outlaws up there. Every club in Southern California was represented there. It's not a run where it's a specific area. It's a run up and down the river. So I'm with the question marks, and the Satan slaves are there, and I may have had, I don't remember, I may have had David Brown in my sidecar. He had 2 broken legs at the time, and I may have taken him up there. I can't remember if that was the year or not that I met John, but I'm up there on Kern River with the Satan slaves. The losers from Monterey are there, and some straight Satans there and whatnot. And I hear the Hells Angels are going to come. So I haven't really met a lot of Hells Angels. I knew Animal. He was up in Oakland. He had been part of the question marks. But other than him, I didn't have a close relationship with any. I had run across Buzzard and Dougie Poo and these different Hells Angels. So I'm up there and loaded on LSD, and you can hear this pack of motorcycles coming really fast and hard through the canyon. They're echoing off the mountains, and they pull into the campgrounds, and they just park anywhere they want, man. And I'm like tripping. I'm going, wow, I've never seen this many Hells Angels before, right into a run. And one Hells Angel in particular stands out to me, and he was big. he was old, and he just stood there. He had a little cigar in his mouth, and he was pulling on the cigar, and his face would light up and glow. And, you know, like I said, I was loaded. I'm looking at him, and he's old. He's got wrinkles all over his face. Every time he pulls on that cigar, his face lights up, and the wrinkles on his face break into little road maps. I'm like hallucinating. And behind me is a Saint Slave member named Andy, who had gotten high as well. We had this drink we call Outlaw Punch, and we put whiskey in it, and, or vodka or gin, fruit punch, and then we put liquid LSD in it, mix it all up. And anybody that was there was drinking that Outlaw Punch. Andy had drank too much, and we had to tie him to a tree. And he was struggling and screaming and yelling. We wouldn't let him loose. And old man John's walking up to me, and he's staring at me. And he said, "Did they save enough rope for you?" But he says it in this really growly voice. He pulled a cigar out of his mouth. That was, anytime he talked, he would pull a cigar out of his mouth. And he said, "Did they save enough rope for you?" I knew exactly what he was talking about. He was waiting like I was going to flip out. I looked over my shoulder, and I just kind of smiled. And then he came up and stood by the fire. And he was looking at me. And he knew who I was. He goes, "You're that Christie kid, aren't you?" He goes, "You riding that flathead?" And I'm like, you know, he's like kind of tripping me out. And now look, I'm living in a world that's very new to me. And there's a lot of unwritten rules in it. And I'm thinking, I'm loaded on LSD, and I'm thinking, man, I wonder if I broke a rule, and this guy's going to jack me up right now. And he opens his vest up, and he reached in his pocket, and I had no idea what he was going to pull out. I'm thinking, is he going to pull out a gun? Is he going to pull out a knife? What he pulled out was a card, and he handed it to me. And it was a courtesy card. And it said, Hells Angels, Los Angeles. And then it had the death head. And then in the lower left-hand corner, it said, Old Man John, President. And I just was looking at it. I was going, wow, this is Old Man John. I knew it was him, but now I really knew it was him. And he said, why don't you come down to L.A. as my guest? And, you know, it just kind of went from there, you know. Within 2 or 3 months, I was prospecting, and it was just a wild ride from that point on. You know, I was with the Los Angeles Hells Angels, hanging out, became a prospect, and you know, back then, you just made member when you made member. You know, it was, you know, nowadays it's, you know, 2 or 3 year ordeal. You know, I became a member in 4 months. You know, and it was just opened up a whole new world to me.